We stand here in the southern, eastern part of the plain of Jericho. The people of Israel came to Jericho from the east. Moses conquered the mountains of Gilgal, which we see in the east. And then, after the war, the people of Israel went down through the valley which we can see. It's called, in Arabic, it's called Wadi Hisban, which reminds us of the biblical name Heshbon. This is Nahal Heshbon, Wadi Hisban. It's a wide valley, and the people of Israel, 2 million people, went down from the mountains of Gilad to the plains of Moab, right to the east. We can see the wide plain. Here, in this plain, God renewed the covenant with the people of Israel. And this was the final covenant with the people of Israel. The covenant in Sinai was only the beginning. Here, after 40 years of learning the laws of God with Moses, God renewed the covenant with the people of Israel. We read about this covenant in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 29, verse 9. You stand this day, all of you, before the Lord your God. Your captains of your tribes, your elders, and your officers, with all the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and thy stranger that is in thy camp. All the people of Israel is standing here in this big plain called Arvot Moab, the plain of Moab. And here God renewed the covenant that thou should enter into the covenant of the Lord thy God, and into his oath, which the Lord thy God makes with you this day. It is very important to emphasize this day, that he may establish you, thee, today for a people to himself, and that he may be to thee a God, as he has said to thee, and as he has sworn to thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. So the covenant which made the Jewish people a people of God began in Sinai, but was finished here in this plain east of the Jordan River, the plain of Moab. And this was the end of the project of Moses, a project of 40 years. He brought the people of Israel out of Egypt and taught them and educated them for 40 years, brought them to the Jordan River, and finished the covenant of the people of Israel with God. Here Moses finished his project, and he was told by God to climb to the mountain of Nevo, the mountain of Nevo, which we can see east of us. Now church is located on top of this mountain, based on an ancient Christian church. That is the mountain where Moses finished his life. Here in this plain, this was the first time that Moses uttered the famous sentence, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O the people of Israel, your God, the Lord, is one God. And the people of Israel received that principle, received the faith in God, the one God, and entered into a covenant with God. Moses went up to the mountain of Nebo and died there on the mountain. He didn't cross the Jordan River. Joshua was his successor. Joshua became the leader of the people after Moses. And he crossed the Jordan River with the people of Israel. Here took place the miracle of the Jordan River stopping to bring water from the north to the south. The water stopped north of Jericho, and all the Jordan River south until the Dead Sea became dry. And the people of Israel, with Joshua as a leader, crossed the Jordan River. At that time, the Jordan River was wide, 200, 300 meters. We can see here the original width, the original Jordan River in the time of Joshua. And they crossed to the west, to the plain of Jericho. And they put the tabernacle, which wandered with them in the desert, this time they put it right here. After they put the tabernacle, they arranged the camp around the tabernacle, and they performed circumcision. The people of Israel were not circumcised in the desert because it was too dangerous to circumcise them in the desert. So when they crossed the Jordan River and came to this camp in the land of Israel, the first thing they did after arranging the camp and the tabernacle, the first thing they did was to arrange circumcision to hundreds of thousands of Jews, Bnei Israel, people of Israel, who were not circumcised in the desert. And by circumcising themselves, they were able to celebrate Passover, because according to the Bible, it is impossible. You are not allowed to celebrate the Passover without being circumcised. So after they were circumcised, they were able to celebrate the Passover, and this was the first Passover that they celebrated as a free nation. Here they started the journey of the Jewish people as a free nation, as the nation of God, as the people of God. The circumcision was the end of Exodus. The Bible says it very clearly in the book of Joshua that the name of this site was Gilgal. And the reason that it was called Gilgal was, I read in Joshua chapter 5, verse 9, "And the Lord said to Joshua, this day have I rolled away the reproach of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, from off you." So he called the name of the place Gilgal to this day. So Gilgal in Hebrew means that God took away the reproach, the shame of Egypt. So the end of Exodus was here. And on the other side, this was the beginning, the starting point of the Jewish people as a free nation. Here, the covenant was finished. On the eastern side, on the plains of Moab, they received the Torah from Moses. In the western side, on the plains of Jericho, they were circumcised and celebrated the Passover. Where is the site of Gilgal? Where did the tabernacle stand exactly? Here it is very interesting. We are standing in the eastern side of Jericho, exactly as it is said in the Bible that the tabernacle stood in the eastern part of Jericho. Where exactly? Here we have something very interesting. We have here a Christian tradition. There is right next to us a Christian monastery that is located next. It is called Dirhajlee. It is based on an ancient Byzantine monastery established about 1600 years ago, in the beginning of Christianity. And this monastery stands very close to a big spring, Dirhajlee. The people of Israel needed water. So it makes sense that the Christian tradition is based on Jewish tradition that identified this site as a holy site, the place of the tabernacle, and it is in the eastern side, the southern edge of the plain of Jericho, next to the spring Dirhajlee, and very close to the Jordan River. The people of Israel needed a lot of water. So probably the tabernacle stood there, where the monastery stands now. And indeed, in the Madaba map, there is a picture of a church with 12 windows, the number of stones in the monument of Joshua. Where exactly did the ceremony of the circumcision take place? Here the Bible speaks about Givat Ha'aralot. Let us read in Joshua chapter 5, verse 2. And that time the Lord said to Joshua, prepare knives and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. And Joshua made the knives and circumcised the children of Israel at the hill of Aralot. There was a special hill. Probably that hill was very close to the Jordan River, because the people who were circumcised, they needed a lot of water to wash themselves before the circumcision and right after the circumcision. And here, if we look to the east, we can see a hill just on the bank of the Jordan River. There are, you see, scattered stones on this hill. These are probably the stones from which Joshua made the knives. He made stone knives, flint knives. So probably he made the knives out of these stones, and the people who are circumcised here on this hill could just go down to the Jordan River and wash themselves, and later prepare themselves for the celebration of the Passover. And here we stand after almost 3,400 years, after the Jewish people started its way in history, and we are back here in Jericho. The Jewish people is still alive. The Jewish people is still full of faith in God. The Jewish people is still loyal and faithful to the teaching of Moses, of Joshua. And we stand here in this place. We can feel the spirit of Moses and the spirit of Joshua. And from this place, we can tell Moses and Joshua, your work, your life was not in vain. What you started 3,400 years ago is still alive. And we are here to witness that the last prophecy of Moses has come true. And here is the last prophecy of Moses that was recited right here on the plains of Moab. Here are the words of Moses. Then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations among whom the Lord thy God has scattered thee. Moses, we are back in our land. If thy outcasts be at the utmost parts of heaven, from there will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from there will he fetch thee. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it. We are back. We have possessed the land. We have captured the land in the War of Independence, in the 6-Day War. And we believe that we shall be privileged to see the end of the prophecy. If thou shalt hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments, which are written in this book of the Torah, and if thou turn to the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul.